Hello everyone, today we have new video review, and as you can see, this time we are going to talk about fresh release from Miniart. So this set, of course, it is molded in 1/35 scale, but it comes as a, let's say, interior-less kit, so we do not have interior here. It's more of an external kit for modelers who would like to focus on the external features. And as you can see, it copies Pz.Kpfw.IV Ausf.H. And you can see it's a Nibelungen work, mid-production August 1943, and kit number is 35337. So we have a commercial sample, and it means you will get exactly the same stuff as what you will see in this video review. So it will be interesting to check what is actually supplied in such version of this tank. And do not underestimate it. I mean, even though we do not have interior here, still it will be a nicely detailed model. I mean, considering the previous releases from this brand, that's why I do not have any doubt about it. But we are going to open it together and check what is included. And by the way, you will get exactly the same stuff as what you will see in this video review, because it's a commercial sample, so it means that's the final shape of this kit and nothing will change in the commercial release. So, first of all, box size is the same. Here you can see comparison with my hand. We have quite nice box art here, and here we have short list of the features. It's written that there are 4 decal options, and on the side you'll find some safety information and address of the manufacturer, barcode, QR code, and the address might be handy in case you would like to visit them, who knows. And here on the opposite side you can see these 4 marking options which I just mentioned a few seconds ago. They are quite colorful in my opinion, because we have both, let's say, summer camouflages as well as the winter camouflages, and obviously that's the version which was on the box art, but we will check them a bit more detailed way in assembly manual, where we have color printed marking guides. So now I'm trying to open it. It's a bit of a tight fitment, even though box is thinner than the typical interior kit from Miniart. And here we have all the parts. As you can see, there is, I would say, some space still left, both in terms of height and width. So that's why parts should arrive to you intact. And as for the packaging style, we have everything sealed into this one plastic bag. So that's why I will have to cut through, and then we will check everything closer. But I mean, that's something what I would like to note, that the plastic bag is usually sealed, and if you get the kit with open plastic bag, or you get it with, let's say, no bag at all, it means that somebody tampered with the packaging before you, and that's why you should be worried. Check all the parts, and I mean, try to ask maybe seller why it was opened before you. So first of all, here we have the really large envelope with PE threads, and it's quite heavy, to be honest. So let's open it. I wonder what is here. And surprisingly, we have 3 PE threads, unpainted ones, obviously. So here you can see them. I will show them one by one. We start with this one, which is dedicated to various armor panels for the side armor. So as you remember, we have external side armor panels, and they will be replicated with this PE parts. They are quite thick, as you can see here. So you have to be careful with them in order to still preserve the right, let's say, shape, to not bend them. But it's a really cool thing, because you won't be able to replicate the same stuff with the plastic parts. Next, we continue with the smaller PE thread. As you can see, it is also unpainted. Here, I guess we have some parts for the turret armor, but we will see it in the review. And here we continue with another PE thread, which is detailed with parts for external features. So there are a lot of clamps, handles, and other minor things which will look better once replicated with PE parts. So that's a really good addition, and in my opinion, model will only benefit from this, especially considering the fact that you're getting it for free, so you don't have to spend extra money. You just have to carefully install all this stuff on your model. Next, we continue with decals sheet and clear frame. They're packed into the same plastic bag, and now I'm trying to remove it because it's a bit of a tight fitment for the decals sheet, unfortunately. So that's why it's barely removable out of the plastic bag. Okay, so first of all we start with the Decals sheet. Let's zoom in even closer, maybe close the lenses a bit. And here we have all the necessary symbols for floor marking options, as you can see. We also have these white symbols which should be visible here. And printing quality is really good because it comes from Decals, that's why you shouldn't be worried about any possible issues during the application process. Just be careful while working with these thin symbols. I mean, that applies to all decals because usually such decals are a bit tricky. Here we continue with the clear frame. So this one comes in form of a wide shaped sprue. I will zoom out and open lenses so that you can see all these parts. And in my opinion, all these parts look quite nice, so you will have to think about masking them because masks are not supplied in this kit, and that's something what you will have to think through because it will be a bit tricky to mask all these periscopes. Maybe use the liquid masks, maybe cut the exact masks from the masking taper. That's up to you. Next, we start with a gray plastic sprue. So here we have hull parts. Let's zoom out a bit. And here you can see them in overall look, let's say. So note that the muzzle brake for the main barrel is molded separately as a one-piece part, which is really great. Here is the main barrel, by the way. And that's something what I appreciate about this kit, because Miniart managed to have this part molded as a single-piece part. Here you can check it from the opposite side. And that means that you won't have to worry about any ugly seams in such visible area. And that's really important because some brands still, let's say, separate this element into two hulls, and that's not a good approach for such, I would say, tender part. Note that some elements still have minor amounts of flesh. I'm talking about this part, for example, so be careful. And here, for example, as well. So you will have to carefully clean them with a sharp knife, but that's not such a difficult task. So I wouldn't consider it as a huge, let's say, disadvantage, but still keep in mind such thing and be ready to work on it because it will require some attention and due, let's say, cleaning. Next, we continue with another large gray plastic sprue. Here we have hull parts. So you can see the lower hull section base plate. We also have some turret elements, and all of them look quite nice. I don't have any complaints about them. We also have some parts for the sidewalls and rear armor wall. And I can see also some parts for the side armor. So these brackets will be actually holding the PE parts in place. And I mean, they look quite fine. They are thin as far as you can see, so it should be okay. Note that all hatches are molded separately, so it means you can open them. But again, small reminder that we are dealing here with the version without interior, so there will be nothing to show inside. Next, we continue with the sprue, which is dedicated to the main gun parts, and that's something to add to the previous words. So it's not like entirely nothing inside, it's not completely empty inside. For example, here we will be able to replicate the main gun breech inside the turret. So maybe this will be handy for those who plan to open the turret hatch, because it won't be just an emptiness inside. This huge element will be visible through the turret, and it is quite important for, let's say, diorama purposes. Next, we continue with another gray plastic sprue. Here we have these armor panels for the turret, and also we have some minor elements for machine gun bay. We also have a lot of parts for the main hull, and I can see these are the parts for the turret rear stowage bin. This is a panel for the engine bay on the tank. And everything looks fine. I mean, these armor panels are also welcome, even though they are not PE, but I think some others will be okay with such addition. Next, we continue with two identical plastic sprues. Here they are. So I will show you only one. Here we have some parts for the suspension, for example road wheels, and some buffers for the suspension elements. And we can zoom in even closer so that you can see, for example, on the road wheels we have some pre-molded details. This is something what is also good about the Miniart kits, because you do not get such details in other 135 scale Miniart, well, not Miniart, but other manufacturer kits. So that's why it is really important if you play with some weathering and bring out such features so that they will be noticeable on the finished model. Next, we continue with another pair of identical sprues. So these ones are smaller. Here we have all the necessary elements for the lower hull section, as well as this exhaust cover, as far as you can see. We also have some spare tracks, and they will be placed on the front of the hull, as you remember, so nothing, I would say, unusual here. But still, you can see that really good attention to small features, and that would be useful in the overall build. Next, we continue with 4 identical plastic sprues. So, as you can guess, these sprues are dedicated to drivetrain parts, so I will leave you only one because they carry the same set of parts. Let's flip it over. So here we have road wheels. We also have some suspension parts such as suspension arms and leaf springs, and maybe I'll try to bring closer these road wheels so that you can see that we have some pre-molded details on the rubber bands. But again, we have the rubber elements pre-molded as a single piece part together with the rim. There are no painting templates whatsoever, so you'll have to be careful while working with it. I still wonder why Miniart does not include any painting templates for such element, because it would speed up the assembly process, painting process as well, and maybe make it easier to work on the model, because it would be a bit more pleasant experience overall. Next, we continue with track parts. So tracks assembly will be let's say reliant on combining these two elements together. We have 2 bags with pins and also tracks. As far as I remember, here we have this track assembly jig. This is something what Miniart started including recently, and this is really handy because before you had to assemble all this stuff with your own tools and hands. Now at least you get it in the standard package. Next, we continue with more parts for the lower hull section. Again, 2 sprues of the same part type. Here we have drive sprockets and also this special installation slot for these drive sprockets. Again, if I bring them closer, you can see that they're nicely detailed. All these nuts look good, and we have some pre-molded features like casting marks on the hull elements. Obviously, you have to delete some, let's say, middle sections, which will be, which are used in order to preserve the shape, but that's not a difficult task, so definitely doable. Next, we continue with idlers, and they come on this thin sprue. There are quite small parts. Again, we have rubber elements pre-molded together with rims, so that's why you should be ready to carefully paint all this stuff. It will be a bit tricky, but it is doable. And yes, it will be a repeating task, because you have to do the same stuff again and again, but that's something you cannot avoid. Here we continue with the front plate of the lower hull section. So it looks quite nice. We have separate ports for machine gun, and I think, yeah, it should be detailed inside as well, even though we do not have any interior. But still, it's nice to see. Maybe you will have some spare parts from previous builds and you will be able to use them here. Next, we have these tensioners here. So they are supplied as one-piece parts as well. Well, basically you have to combine 2 of them for each side. As you can see, we have special guiding elements inside here. That's not a difficult task, especially considering that this part should be painted in hull color, like completely, so that's why you don't have to mask anything. They are ready to be worked straight out of the box. Next, we continue with the side shelf, which is molded as a single piece part. This one is the right one, and you can see that level of pre-molded details is also quite nice. I appreciate that they detailed inner side as well. It's not like the plain inside, because nobody will see. That's what I like about Miniart kits, because they basically go for every detail on the kit. They do not skip some areas because they're not visible. Here we continue with another side skirt and also some holders for the external armor panels. They will be quite important, so be sure to carefully separate the thin parts, otherwise you'll have to fix them somehow, and I think it's not possible to scratch build such stuff, so that's why you should keep in mind and pay attention to these elements. Separate frame is dedicated to Miniart tools. They're quite detailed here. As you can see, they're pre-molded with clamps, but I think here kit also offers you a possibility to replace the clamps with PE parts. It will be a bit more tricky procedure, but it will also give you a finer details, so it's up to you whether you would like to go for such let's say procedure. Next we have another sprue with Miniart tools and various, let's say, accessories which will be placed on the hull. And again, I think here you do not have to use everything at once. Maybe some parts will stay, so you will get a lot of spare parts as well. And these small loops, they actually hint that you should have your own metal wire in case you would like to replicate the towing cable on your tank. Next, we continue with a small plastic sprue for machine gun. This one will be placed in the hull, obviously, but you can see it looks quite good. It's a typical MG from Miniart, so it's just a matter of careful painting and you'll get a nice result. Next we continue with bigger sprue, so this one carries more hull parts, because as you remember, we haven't seen yet the side panels, so here they are. We also have the rear armor panel and top panels for the top section of the hull, obviously, and all this stuff looks great. Again, we have separately molded hatches, so they can be opened, but still I would rather open them only to place the figures inside, otherwise there is nothing to show inside. That's why you should think through why you would like to open these hatches. And last but not the least is this sprue. So here we have more parts for the turret. Again, side hatches for the turret are openable, so you can assemble them in open position. Again, it should be handy with some diorama ideas. And overall molding quality here looks fine. We do not have any flash here, so that's why I was surprised to see flash on the previous sprue. I mean, here everything molded nicely, clean way, and no any additional problems. Next we continue with assembly manual. So this one is printed in form of large brochure with a short features note on the cover. Here you can see all the points. Just to remind you, we have 4 marking options inside, and straight away we start with the marking guide. So here we have one tank from Ukraine, autumn 1943, one more comes from Belarus, 1943-1944, winter camouflage, looks quite good, and I would say good material for some weathering ideas. Next we continue with parts map, and as usual Miniart does not show unused parts. That's why you should pay attention to which elements used where. And assembly process starts with the lower hull section, so as you can see it's a matter of combining all these panels together. Obviously we do not have any interior parts, that's why it should be quick. It's just a combination of separate parts, maybe deciding on whether you would like to open or close these front hatches. Here we already working on the spare tracks. Note that they will be held in place with PE parts, so all the clamps are replicated with PE elements. This is quite neat, but it will be also tricky to install. Next we continue working on the lower hull section by installing various elements and side skirts. Again, we decide on the hatches on the top hull section. So as you can see, this, let's call it superstructure, is being assembled separately as a let's say special subsection of the tank, and then it's getting installed on the lower hull section. Here we continue with some of the panels on the lower hull section. We assemble the road wheels, which should be built out of 3 parts, and then we install these hatches on the engine bay. So obviously they can be opened, but I do not see any point because it will be just empty space inside. Next we continue here with the towing cable. So as I said, you have to have your own metal wire in case you would like to place the metal cable, towing cable. Here we also attach the fuel tank in place, and we start working on the various accessories being installed on both shelves of the tank. And that's not all, because we have a lot of Miniart tools. We also install these front mud guards, as you can see here. We start assembling the tracks, and these are spare tracks. So here we assemble the road wheels. Actually, they are built out of 2 parts and placed on each bogie, and then we install all this stuff on the lower house section, obviously, and next we start working on the track. So that's exactly what I was talking about. You use this jig, you place all the tracks on it, and then you fix them in place with help of these pins from both sides. Quite a neat process, but it will be quite repeatable, so I would say get some patience in order to assemble all this stuff. Here we work with P parts, so we assemble the side skirts for the side armor, and next we continue assembly with the turret. So it will be nicely detailed inside. I mean, even though this is a kit without interior, as you can see, the main gun is very nicely detailed inside, so it's worth opening one of the hatches in order to expose it. Here you continue with the muzzle brake for the main gun. You can see there are several assembly options, so definitely pay attention to which one you will need for your particular marking option. Note that machine gun can be placed as an option on the turret, so it wasn't the hull machine gun, it was the turret machine gun. And here we continue with the side armor panels, which are made out of plastic for the turret, so it's also quite important thing. But note that the top armor panel is made, not molded, as a P part. And here we place the finished turret on the main hull. So quite a straightforward assembly process, 82 steps. Be ready for that. Next we continue with the colors chart here, and third marking option from summer 1944, and here we have another one from Ukraine, winter 1943-1944. So all in all, we get a really interesting release from Miniart. It should be already available, so you can get it, for example, in Modelimex. Of course, I will be happy to hear your opinion about such a release. Do not forget to write it here in the comment section below. If you like this video, press the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will see you in the next video review as usual. Thank you for joining me today, and bye!